Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about if you can get in trouble for, um, if you could be rightly castigated, rightly denigrated, because your dungeon master coverage is wrong. Let's explore it, right? So we're going to look at the dungeon master and what your coverage is, what's a right coverage and what's a wrong coverage. And then we're going to talk about Grace Randolph and how she recently got in trouble for wrong coverage, in my humble opinion, for Hollywood movies and what lessons we can learn from that as dungeon masters. All right, so what is wrong coverage? All right, so you are bringing your players to the table and you're running Dungeons and Dragons for them, right? Now, there's essentially like three types of Dungeons and Dragons that you can run for them. You can run your own world, right? Nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's encouraged. James Wyatt actually explained that running your own world is quite literally is canon to Dungeons and Dragons. That's pretty astounding, right? Like, it's established in early Fizban, in the early chapters of Fizban, that your custom Dungeons and Dragons setting is canon to the game. Well, that's incredible. So if you don't use Forgotten Realms, if you don't use Exandria, and you run your own custom world, that's canon to Dungeons and Dragons. James Wyatt established it at the very beginning of Fizban, right in D&D 5e, right now, right? That's astounding. The ramifications of that are massive, right? So you can run your own custom world. You can run Dungeons and Dragons worlds, right? And you could run vanilla Dungeons and Dragons worlds so that people understand what Dungeons and Dragons lore is, right? Or you can run hyper Dungeons and Dragons settings, right? What would be an example of a hyper Dungeons and Dragons setting? I think a hyper Dungeons and Dragons setting right now would be running a Warhammer 40k game with Dungeons and Dragons. Scott, why would I run a Warhammer 40k game with Dungeons and Dragons? Because the Dungeons and Dragons canon hardbacks are suggesting that you take all Magic the Gathering cards and run Dungeons and Dragons games with them. They just did it in Book of Many Things, right? They're like, hey, you know what you should be including in your Dungeons and Dragons game? Magic the Gathering cards. And you're like, oh, wait, which Magic the Gathering cards? And they made it crystal clear. Everything that has an MTG back on it, right? Literally Magic the Gathering cards. There was no caveat left. Like, there was no they're not like Theros, Strixhaven, Ravnica. They're like, if it's a Magic the Gathering card, you should be including it in your Dungeons and Dragons game. So that would be a perfect example of a hyper Dungeons and Dragons game, like running, So where could you get in trouble? Okay, so now you have the custom world, you have the vanilla world, right? That's Forgotten Realms. You have the custom world, that's your world, right? You have the vanilla world, that's base Dungeons and Dragons, right? That's Forgotten Realms, right? Waterdeep Dragon Heist, right? Then you have the hyper world, right? And the hyper world would be a Warhammer 40k, because Warhammer 40k is connected to Magic the Gathering, and because Warhammer 40k is connected to Magic the Gathering, and Magic the Gathering has been, by Book of Many Things, has explained if it's got Magic the Gathering printed on the card, if it's got a Magic the Gathering back, you're good to go. In fact, you're encouraged. Like, it's telling you should be doing this, right? Like, it's incredible, right? Right. So where could you run into problems? This gets really interesting. Listen to this, right? So the FLGS. So you're running a game, right? You got like 4 players, and there's 3 other, DMG dungeon masters in your area, and the other 3 are sitting in the FLGS. You walk in on a Saturday, and one of them goes, "Oh yeah, he's a trash dungeon master. He doesn't know what he's doing. He ran Hyper Dungeons and Dragons from the beginning, right? He brought in people who didn't even know who Elminster was, didn't know what Waterdeep was, didn't know what Neverwinter was. Now his players know how to play Space Marines in Dungeons and Dragons, but they don't know what a rogue, a fighter, a cleric, or a wizard are. They don't even know the core 4, right? He did it wrong. He should have gone Dungeons and Dragons Vanilla, Dungeons & Dragons Custom, then Dungeons & Dragons Hyper. That's what a Dungeon Master who cares about their player does. They teach them about Dungeons & Dragons, and then they take them through the arc of Vanilla, Custom, Hyper, right? And that's what I've done with my players. Guys care about him. He doesn't care about anything, any of his players at all. He just got excited about Warhammer and jumped straight to Hyper, right? That's not correct. He did it wrong. right? And you walk in and your heart sinks because you're right, because you realize they're right, right? You have a duty to explain Dungeons and Dragons to your player over multiple arcs, right? So let's look at what Grace Randolph did, and let's determine what is the right response to this, and how do we make sure we have the right coverage, right? So Grace Randolph very much just got in a lot of trouble for this, right? And she caught community fire, right? So how and why? Well, she skipped reviewing Godzilla -1, right? And so actually, now what's shocking is I listen to Fish Jelly, and I listen to Popcorn Beard, Fish Jelly, and Beyond the Trailer. Okay, Beyond the Trailer is Grace Randolph's, right? Popcorn Beard is this tiny little dude out of he's got like 100 subs, and he's out of Canada, and he's spectacular. He's legitimate, one of the best movie reviewers in the world. He's extremely genuine. His reviews are very sincere. He talks about movie. He tells you what snacks he got, right? He tells you what his seating was like, what the people around him were like. That's genius. That is so personal and real and good. And I wish everybody did that. Every reviewer did that. He's really good, right? Fish Jelly are these guys who do spoiler reviews for everything, and I'm talking everything. They literally cover one of the guys reviewed 1,000 movies in 2023. Not a joke. Literally 1,000. So he watched 3 movies a day, right? This guy is on the grind. He is really working hard. And basically he is like Grace inverted, right? So it's Nick over on Fish Jelly. He actually reviews like you. Grace's review count is equal to the movies that Nick doesn't review. It's literally inverted, right? He reviews virtually everything, right? In full spoiler detail, right? Grace doesn't do that, right? She only reviews what she thinks is significant, right? And she only reviews it if she can get it out in time for the commercial release of the film on the big screen, right? And so basically she skipped Godzilla -1, and her community really didn't like it. She caught a lot of community fire. Where did she catch the fire, right? In the live stream. So she has these live streams, and every single live stream for 2 weeks, people were like, hey, why didn't you review Godzilla -1? And then people were like, hey, review Godzilla -1. And she was like, I can't review Godzilla -1 because the window has passed, right? If I review it, nobody's going to watch the review because people only watch the review when it comes out, right? Now, I don't doubt that she's right about that. But other people are like, wait, I don't care about that, Grace. Like, I want to see your trailer review. I want to see your reaction video to the trailer. I want to see your detailed trailer review. I want to see your non-spoiler review. I want to see your spoiler review, right, of the film, all 4, right? And what's wild is she didn't do any of it, and they're like, and I don't really care when it comes out. The movie isn't done until I see your review. I feel very much that way. Like, I really feel like I had an incomplete experience with Godzilla -1 because I don't know what Grace thought about it, right? So that isn't really a full, complete piece of art to me, right? It's not a full movie. I consider a full movie something that I've seen Grace's all 4 parts of her content, right? And so now I have a better, more thorough, complete experience with the film. And without her, I don't have a complete experience, right? And I don't think she has any concept of that. But these parasocial relationships are massively changing. People are not understanding how quickly this is happening, right? But she really caught community fire on this, right? And the reason why was, first of all, I realized, right? Like, I was like, oh, I didn't even expect her to review this at all. Why? Well, because the reality is she has a criteria. If it's DC or Marvel, she covers it. And that is a huge amount of coverage. That puts a lot of strain on her personally, right? But she does. She covers every single Marvel and DC project, right? In addition to that, she'll do anything that's going to make $250 million or more, generally, okay? I think $250 million or more, she's got a review up, right? So that's a lot of work, right? Now, I was like, there's a ton of reasons she ain't going to review this. One, she doesn't like genre if it isn't Marvel and DC, right? She doesn't like international films, right? And it's not even that she doesn't like them. She won't review them. She won't review them, right? She doesn't like Godzilla, right? I don't remember just seeing her, she's not constantly talking about Godzilla, the way she constantly talks about Marvel and DC, right? So I legitimately have this opinion that she doesn't like it, right? And actually, I guess there's really no distinction. I mean, it doesn't matter if she's just not interested, and she thinks it matters. She's like, well, it's not that I don't like it; it's just I'm not covering it. But if you don't give it any play, I'm going to assume you don't like it, right? Like that's the way the world works, right? And so I was like, this is a Godzilla movie. She don't care about that. This is an international movie. She don't care about that. This is a genre movie that is not MC, that is not DC or Marvel. She don't care about that, right? And finally, I hate to say this, but it's a male movie. Like it's a movie that skewed primarily male, right? That male, like it's a movie where we knew that the covered, that the attendance for it was going to be majority male, right? And she don't care about that, like and I actually don't think that it's not she doesn't care. It's that she doesn't have the bandwidth, right? But the distinction doesn't matter that much to me, right? Because increasingly I've been going to Fish Jelly to get the reviews I can't get from her, right? And she really felt terrible about this, and the reason why is, and I believe her on. I don't think Grace ever lies. Honestly, I'm serious. I don't think she's ever lied. I've been watching her for 10 years. I've never seen her lie once, right? And that's very much not the truth for many YouTubers. Many YouTubers lie, I think, constantly, right? To fit their narrative, to build this agenda, right? And so I thought it was really interesting because she was like, hey, I had my ticket, I was all set to go, and a family emergency came up, right? Or some serious, like something significant, some family thing came up, and I needed to do something else, right? And I 100% believe her, right? The problem is this movie, right, fit the excuse fell flat, right? Because it just, like, I was like, I know I'm not going to get a review for Godzilla 1 minus 1, and when I didn't, it totally matched my expectations, right? So she really caught a lot of community fire, and for 2 weeks, every single live stream, people were like, why didn't you review Godzilla minus 1? Why didn't you review Godzilla minus? Why won't you review it now? Like, they would not shut up about it. It was like a drumbeat, and she knew. I actually think Grace's coverage in 2024 will be different, right? Based on what happened with Godzilla minus 1. And so the point is, we can be fairly crap talked at the FLGS if we don't get our coverage right. That is appropriate. Right? You're like, wait, what are you saying, Scott? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, bro. Like, I'm saying, yeah, you walk in and they're crap talking you at the FLGS, you might deserve it. That castigation and that denigration may very well be warranted. Did you catch that? Warranted, right? Because you didn't get your coverage right? And it's hard because, like, sometimes we want to follow our passion, but you can't. You have a job. Your job is to show Dungeons & Dragons in the right order, in the right hierarchy. You need to bring them up. Vanilla, custom, hyper. That's the right order. That's the right sequencing. That is the right coverage map, right? And we're just like Grace. We're plugging away. We're doing everything right. We are the best we can be. But sometimes the community fire is deserved. The castigation is deserved. The denigration is deserved if we're going to get to that next level of quality, right? And I think there's going to be some serious self-reflection from Grace about how she covers male movies, how she covers international movies, how she covers Godzilla movies, and how she covers genre movies that are not Marvel and DC, right? And she's the best in the world. She is literally the best in the world. She shouldn't have to make anything better, but she does. That's just the way it is. And we are the same. We are exactly the same. We do everything to serve these players, but we have to give more. That's what you're here for, right? I'm Scott Garibay. I say that Dungeons & Dragons matters. I say it's serious. I say it's the most important secular thing on the planet, and we have got to strive to do more. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.